Welcome back again, coffee beans. This is General Agriculture. Definition of terms. Part 4 continuation.
Nitrogen, a chemical element essential to life and one of the primary plant nutrients. Nitrogen fixation refers to the transformation of free nitrogen into nitrogen compounds that can be absorbed as foods by plants. This is done naturally through bacterial decomposition, nitrogen nodules on plant roots, or by lightning. Nitrogen fixing, the conversion of elemental nitrogen, N2, from the atmosphere to organic forms utilizable in biological processes. Nocturnal, of night, a nocturnal parasite is one which is active at night. Nodule, a tubercle formed on legume roots by nitrogen-fixing bacteria of the genus Rhizobium. Non-essential amino acids are amino acids, which are essential to the animal, but are normally synthesized or sufficient in the diet and need not be supplemented. Non-farm income includes all income from non-farm sources, excluding money earned from working for other farmers, received by farm operator households. Non-point source pollution, pollutants that cannot be traced to a specific source, including stormwater runoff from urban and agricultural areas. Non-protein nitrogen, NPN, are compounds that are not true protein in nature but contain N and can be converted to protein by bacterial action, that is, urea. Non-random mating occurs when some individuals do not have the same chances of mating with individuals of the opposite sex. Non-ruminant, an animal without a rumen, for example, a chicken or a pig. Non-saline alkali soil, soil containing sufficient exchangeable sodium to interfere with the growth of most crops. Novel good, is a novel genetically modified food products, example, a processed food product whose composition has been altered. Novel good, is a novel genetically modified food products, example, a processed food product whose composition has been altered. Novel organism, or food, a term used to describe an organism or food that has been genetically engineered or modified. Nucleus, is the control center of the cells of all living things. It contains the genetic material of an organism. Nursery, area in which pigs are moved at weaning, also an area in which lactating sows and their litters may be moved after farrowing. Nutrient, is any feed constituent, or a group of feed constituents of the same general chemical composition that aids in the support of life. It may include synthetically produced vitamins, chemically produced inorganic salts, or biogenically synthesized amino acids. Nutrient deficiency refers to the lack of an adequate amount of a plant nutrient. It may result in a number of symptoms, including poor plant growth, sclerosis or necrosis. Its symptoms can easily be confused with toxicity symptoms. Nutrition is the series of processes by which an organism takes in and assimilates food for promoting growth and replacing worn out or injured tissues. It encompasses several fields of discipline like biochemistry, chemistry, physiology, endocrinology, microbiology, genetics. Occupancy, number of days an animal stay in a pen. Offal, all organs and tissues removed from inside the animal during the slaughtering process. Off-farm income includes wages and salaries from working for other fanners, plus non-farm income for all owner-operator families, whether they live on a farm or not. Offset, planting the plants in a row, or opposite the midpoint between those in the two adjacent rows rather than being directly opposite each other. Oilseed crops, primarily soybeans, peanuts, cottonseed, and flaxseed used for the production of oils for cooking, protein meals, and non-food uses. Less common oil crops include sunflower, safflower, castor beans, and sesame. Omasum, one of the stomach components of ruminant animals. It has many folds. On full feed, is a term that refers to animals that are receiving all the feed they will consume. Open, refers to non-pregnant females. Open shop, is an establishment in which eligibility for employment and retention on the payroll are not determined by membership or non-membership in a labor union. Operator, designated agents of the owner or manager. A SAE, any person in control of, or having responsibility for, the daily operation of a facility where a containment structure is required. Oral exposure, exposure to pesticides by ingestion. Organic, a substance which includes carbon-to-carbon bonds. Organic contaminants are synthetic trace organics which include pesticides and polychlorinated biphenyls. Organic farming is free of synthetic chemicals. It means produced in soils of enhanced biological activity, determined by the humus level, crumb structure and feeder root development, so that plants are fed through the soil ecosystem and not primarily through soluble fertilizers added to the soil. Organic matter, chemical substances of animal or vegetable origin, consisting of hydrocarbons and their derivatives. Organic soil, a soil that is composed predominantly or organic matter, usually refers to peat. Organism refers to an individual animal, plant, or single-celled life form. Organizing is the process of arranging and allocating work, authority and resources among an organization's members so that they can achieve the organization's goals. Osmosis is the diffusion of substance through a cell wall or other membrane. Other cleaning areas, dirt screens, recleaners, and other auxiliary cleaning devices provide cleaning areas. Permeable surfaces and pneumatic cleaning areas shall be calculated and expressed as specified in paragraphs 2.11.1 and 2.11.2. Outbreeding is a system where unrelated individuals are mated to produce the next generation. Outcross, a cross to an individual not closely related. Oven dry, the equilibrium of tension of the moisture is 10,000 spheres. Ovine, an animal of the subfamily of Ovidae, sheep, goats. Oviparous, producing offspring from eggs which hatch outside the body. Oviposition, the laying, expelling, of a fully developed eggs. Ovulation, the shedding of a follicle by the ovary. The ovary of a hen contains a series of follicles, called the follicular size hierarchy. Owner, a person who owns a facility at which a containment structure is required. Ownership costs, the costs which do not depend on the amount of machine use. Ox, a member of the bovine animals. Oxidation, a chemical change involving addition of oxygen or its chemical equivalent, or involving an increase in plus or decrease in valence. Oxide, are minerals formed by direct union of an element with oxygen. Oxygen demand, a chemical and biological oxygen demand, COD and BOD, are measures of the oxygen consumed when a substance degrades. Oxytocin is a hormone secreted by the neurohypophysis or pituitary lobe which stimulates milk ejection in lactating females. Ozonation, a new technology using a form of oxygen, instead of chemicals, to treat cooling water. Pace refers to the rate at which the animal moves. Packaging, process to ensure adequate protection and safe delivery of a product from the producer to the ultimate consumer. Paddle waterer, cup-type demand waterer in which water level is controlled by a paddle-activated valve, operated when an animal pushes it down to drink. Poly refers to the unhulled grain of Oryza sativa, that is a grain with the hulls enclosing the grains. This is also known as paddy or rough rice. Pali variety, this refers to the category or species of pali denoting its genetic characteristics whether it is traditional variety, that is Inton, Raymonade, etc., or modern variety which is a result of genetic improvement or interbreeding of different varieties, that is C4, IR series, BPI series, PSP series, etc. Pala is the inner bract of a floret lying next to the caryopsis in grasses. Palmate, radicately lobed or divided. Palpation, feeding by hand. Pancreas, this gland is located at the duodenal lobe of the small intestine. It is both an exocrine and an endocrine gland. Panicle, an inflorescence with a main axis and subdivided branches, as in oats and sorghum. Parasitic, living in or on another living organism. Parenchyma, tissue concerned with the storage and distribution of carbohydrates, cells mostly short, with numerous simple pits. Parent material, The original state of the soil. The relatively unaltered lower material in soils is often similar to the material in which the horizons above have formed. Parity. The number of different times a female has had offspring. Parthenogenesis refers to the fruit production without sexual fertilization. Parthenogenesis is the development of a new individual from a germ cell without fertilization. Partial planning and budgeting takes part of the farm as the subject for decision. It considers the expenses and returns of the parts of the farm under consideration so that the net returns indicate only the profitability associated with change envisioned rather than the whole farm. Particle density. It is the ratio of the drying of the soil to the volume of soil particles alone. Particle drift deposits. The deposition of chemical particles outside the intended target area. Particle size analysis. Determination of the various amounts of the different separated in a soil sample, usually by sedimentation, sieving, or micrometry. Particulate matter. Solid or liquid particles of materials. Parturition. The act of process of giving birth to young. Paste feeding. Feeding method in which feed and water are mixed in definite proportions to form a paste before being offered to livestock. Patent refers to a government authority or license to a particular individual or organization conferring a right or title for a set period, particularly the sole right to make use, or sell some invention. Pathogen, an organism, chiefly a microorganism, including viruses, bacteria, fungi, and all forms of animal parasites and protozoa, capable of producing an infection or disease in a susceptible host. Pathogenic microorganism, microorganism capable of causing diseases. Pathology is the science or study of disease, its causes, and its controls. Payweight, the actual weight for which payment is made. In many cases, it is the shrunk weight, actual weight minus pencil shrink. Pedigree, a list of an animal's ancestor, usually only those of the 5 closest generations. Pedology is the study of soil which puts more emphasis on the origin, characteristics, classification, and description. Peeper, a young pigeon ready to leave the nest. Pelt, the wool and skin of a sheep. Pencil shrink, an arithmetic deduction, percent of lived, from an animal's weight to account for fill. Perennial, living more than 1 year but in some cases, producing seed in the first year and every season thereafter. Perfect elastic demand is the situation of extreme elasticity where even if you do not change the price, there is a change in the demand. Perfect flower is a flower having both pistil and stamen. Perfectly inelastic demand is the situation of extreme inelasticity where change in price does not lead to a change in demand. Permaculture, integrated, evolving agricultural system of perennial or self-perpetuating plant and animal species. Permafrost, perennially frozen layer in the soil, found in alpine, Arctic, and Antarctic regions. Permanent pasture, pasture of perennial or self-seeding annual plants maintained through several years of grazing. Permanent safety sign, information affixed to a product to warn against potential exposure to hazards inherent in the normal use of or associated with the product, or that might be created during reasonably anticipated product use. Permanent wilting point, or wilting coefficient, refers to the soil moisture content when plants permanently wilt. The soil moisture tension at this point is about 15 atmospheres. Permanent wilting percentage can be estimated by dividing the field capacity by a factor ranging from 2.0 to 2.4, with the value higher for soils with higher silt content. Permissible exposure limits, the maximum airborne concentration of a pesticide to which a worker may be exposed without typically experiencing adverse effects. Personal protective equipment, PPE. Protective gear worn by pesticide handlers as specified in the use directions on a pesticide label. Personnel management is concerned with an effective recruitment, selection, placement, development, maintenance and utilization of manpower to obtain optimum efficiency of labor. Pesticide is a chemical substance which is toxic to particular insect pests. sprayed onto crops to prevent damage by pests. Pesticide exposure, external, dermal, and/or internal, inhalation and/or oral, contact of the human body to pesticide. Pesticide label, printed statement as required by regulations or agency policies affixed to the pesticide container by the manufacturer listing the quantity of active and inert ingredients, directions for use and precautions. Pest-resistant plants, same as insect-resistant plants, are resistant to certain insect pests, through a built-in insecticide. pH is the designation for degree of acidity or hydrogen ion activity. pH, soil, the negative logarithm of the hydrogen ion concentration of a soil solution. The degree of acidity or alkalinity of oil expressed in terms of the pH scale, from 2 to 10. Phenotype is an environmentally and genetically determined observable appearance of an organism, the expression of genes which can be measured by our senses. What we see in an animal for some trait. Phenology, the study of natural phenomena that recur periodically, such as blossoming, and their relation to climate and seasons. Phenotype, the organism as exemplified by its expressed characters. Phosphorus, P, an element essential to the growth and development of plants, occurs in manure and chemical fertilizer and, in excess, can cause waters to become polluted by promoting excessive growth of algae and other aquatic plants. Photolysis is the splitting of water into H-positive and OH-negative, utilizing solar energy in the light reactions of photosynthesis. Photoperiod refers to the hours of daylight effective in causing physiological changes in plants. Photoperiodic response is the flowering response of a plant in relation to the relative length of light and dark periods, usually in terms of 24-hour day. Photoperiodism is the response of plants to different day lengths or light periods. Photophosphorylation is the production of ATP using the energy of light, excited, electrons produced in the light reactions of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process of converting water and carbon dioxide into sugar using chlorophyll and light energy, accompanied by the production of oxygen by green plants. Phytotoxin, a substance causing growth reduction or death in plants. Phototropism is the growing or turning toward the light. The influence of light on the direction of the different plant parts of a plant tends to grow. Phyllotery is the arrangement of leaves upon the stem. Physiology is defined as the study of function of the parts or organ systems of the body, a study of function of living matter. It attempts to explain the physical and chemical factors that are responsible for the origin, development, and progression of life. Phytoplankton, usually microscopic aquatic plants, sometimes consisting of only one cell. Pictorial, a graphic representation intended to convey a message without the use of words. Pictorial panel, area of a safety sign that contains the pictorial. Pig is a young swine below 1 year. Pigeon cock, a breeding male pigeon. Pigeon hen, a breeding female pigeon. Piglet, very young pig, from birth to winning. Pinholes, small stained circular holes caused by ambrosia beetles in green logs or lumber and considered as logs and lumber degrade. Pistil, the seed-bearing organ of a flower consisting of the ovary, style and stigma. Pistillate, provided with pistils but without stamens. Pit, actively unthickened part of a wood cell wall where a thin membrane may permit liquids to readily pass from one cell to another. A bordered pit has an overhanging rim that is not present in a simple pit. Pith, the small, soft core occurring in the structural center of a tree trunk, branch, twig, or log. Pitching, insertion of a rod or a coiled wire through the hole in the skull of cattle made by the captive blot to destroy the brain and the spinal cord to prevent reflex muscular action and possible injury to operatives. Pithing, insertion of a rod or coiled wire through the hole in the skull of cattle made by the captive blot to destroy the brain and spinal cord to prevent reflex muscular action and possible injury to operatives. Pitting, 1. Shallow pits of suitable capacity and distributing retain precipitation on rangeland or pasture. 2. Formation of small cavities in a surface by corrosion of cavitation. Pituitary, small endocrine gland located at the base of the brain. Plankton, tiny plants and animals that live in water. Planning is the process of establishing goals and a suitable course of action for achieving those goals. Plant, any organism belonging to the plant or vegetable kingdom. Plant germplasm, living material such as seeds, rootstock, or leaf plant tissue from which new plants can grow. Plant length, the length of the plants from its base of ground level to its tip when the plant is straightened, expressed in millimeters. Plantation fruits are fruits plant grown in relatively large areas. Plasma is the fluid portion of the blood containing a number of ions, inorganic molecules, and organic molecules which are transit to various parts of the body or which aid in the transport of other substances. Hope it helps. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next part. Please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, like this video and comment your suggestion on topic you want to hear. Bye. Roar.